GearWebsites.com is your source for firearms-based playing cards and books. We also have mugs, shirts, and posters with designs that we've made live. Of course, we have patches. Every Friday is Free Patch Friday. We appreciate your support. Thank you for shopping at GearWebsites.com. AskGunQuestions.com is a website that we built back in 2007, and since then, for the last 15 years, people have been able to ask questions of simple to advanced nature, and we attempt to answer them in different ways over the years. Join us now as we start a new series to answer gun questions. And welcome everybody to our Ask Gun Questions show. We've got Clover Tack joining us from Texas. Thanks for jumping in.
Hey, good to be here.
And Tony Simon joins us from New Jersey. He said he's going to be a couple minutes late, so we started a couple minutes late, so I'll assume Tony's on his way. But if instead of just, I saw people already using the poll out there, I didn't want to wait forever for starting live here. So we go live on Saturdays, and as it says in the intro, we attempt to answer gun questions from the point of view of lifetime gun owners. We're all old, and we've been around guns for our whole lives in different ways and in different parts of the country with different interests. And since a lot of new gun owners out there aren't in those shoes, we figured we'd get together and attempt to answer questions live and see what happens. So the questions that come in live are take priority, so we end up often dealing with the issues that are coming in from the live guests, so please feel free to participate in that. If you're listening in the future as a podcast or on the YouTube or something, then feel free to leave some questions there, and we can find those and address them in future shows. Or if you've got concerns or additional points that to make on stuff that we've talked about, our answers essentially, feel free to chime in. It's all about conversation. So it's been a couple of weeks since we've all been together, and we're kind of waiting for Tony. So what's been happening with Clover Tack and GunTuber Academy and Clover Tack Cards, and I guess that's probably 3 channels, huh? I know you have a review channel too now.
Yeah, I've got the reviews channel. I've got the Bud Life, which I don't do anything with. Yeah. Man, I don't know. It's over a week ago now. I was had a really, really good run of bad luck. So laptop died. It's the second time in, good Lord, I don't know, 4 years or something like that. And it's just one of those things. I mean, you tell people that, and a lot of people don't realize I spent 2 decades in IT with multiple certifications, so they don't realize that they think they're talking to a redneck from East Texas, and they're talking to someone fairly well educated with tech. But give me all kind of suggestions and stuff, and it's like, well, here's the thing, like, we were into drag racing at one time, and pretty much every 3rd or 4th race you rebuild an engine. That's just the way it is. And so when you have a high-end laptop and you're just constantly pushing it with content creation, which is fairly strenuous on one, things happen, unfortunately. They're not going to last forever, and the telltale sign of that is the very first ones that we bought. My wife got one the exact same, and it's still clipping along and doing fine. So just goes to show you what you do on them does make a difference. But anyway, yeah, I had that. Then I had, as we were talking about in the pre-show, then I had my headset go down, and I had like all my equipment went bad. So hasn't been a whole lot for the last couple of weeks or so with content, but hopefully starting this next week or sometime this next week, hopefully all that will roll back out. We're actually going to attempt to do, and I use the word attempt. We're going to attempt to do a little live stream over on Clover Tack Cards. Number one, just to try to test some of this equipment out and kind of get an idea of what's going on. But number two, to kick back and have a little fun. I've been steadily acquiring some, vintage sports cards and other things. And thanks to G-Web, some racing and NASCAR stuff. But picked up a really big lot of vintage unopened packs from a seller that I deal with pretty regularly over on eBay. And so I'm going to go live and obviously give them a little bit of a shout out and stuff and kind of go through that box. I think 130, 140 packs, somewhere in that range, all types of sports and even some stuff that's not sports. And all mostly, I don't say all, mostly vintage. There are some stuff in there that I've seen that's been from the last, I don't know, probably 4 or 5 years, but most of it is straight up vintage. So 20, 30 years old, 40 years old, stuff like that. So uh, yeah, have a little fun over there maybe later tonight. And that's about all I can vamp. So
I don't know. I'm dealing with. I mean, I don't know if you count the tooth thing. It's a health thing or whatever, but
oh yeah, teeth
yeah,
problems are
that happened
horrible.
last year or last month. But that's money. That's the main thing. And then
Yeah,
I had to go back for a cleaning, so I learned that it's going to cost more if I want to prevent some stuff, type of thing. And then my van is having issues now. I think maybe the water pump's going out. I'm still not sure with what's happening. I'm still diagnosing it, but so far I'm like 140 bucks into fixing the van and trying to figure out why its belt started squeaking and eventually shredded on me over over the weekend. I guess this is the weekend, so it happened on Thursday. But yeah, just throwing out money, hemorrhaging money when you don't expect it is freaking annoying, and having
yeah,
to spend time in the sun bending over an engine to spend that money when you
true.
should be doing other things that make money. That sucks
Yeah,
too.
yeah, yeah. Vehicle issues. That's something that we're gonna have to deal with. We've got TriggerCon coming up end of next month, and then Tulsa in November. So there's going to be a couple of trips coming up, on the horizon. So yeah, we got to get the car. That's money that I'm staring down the barrel, looking at that, going, crap. I gotta spend money. I gotta get tires on that car. I've got to get some work. Thankfully, I've got all the parts, but some work on my truck done because those 2 trips my wife will not be going, so she'll have a vehicle here. And so anyway, I need to get a coil pack replaced on the truck, which is a common thing for those. Um, and then get registration and inspection done on that. Tires on her car. Get her car in for the routine service stuff. Make sure all that's caught up. Yeah, it never seems like it ends. And you're right. It it's
Well,
not
if it ends, it
necessarily
may
that.
solve a lot of it, but things are going to wear. Tires are going to
Yeah,
wear. You drive it, kind of
yeah,
thing, and you just have to schedule in the cost. But
right.
yeah, and I'm not
Well, it
complaining. Having
just
a commercial vehicle is fairly economical. I still think,
yeah,
doesn't break down as much as some fragiler vehicles, but then you pay the price for having to pay a little bit more for parts. Sometimes. Sometimes they're
yeah,
cheap,
yeah. That's true. Um,
but
but
mainly I'm just saying that I'm kind of similar. Just been distracted and
well, and
have,
it depends on
you're
when the bad
trying to.
luck happens. You know.
Exactly. If it happens on a vacation, oh, it's annoying. But if it happens when you're trying to earn and do things, and it breaks you down while you're trying to do stuff,
Yeah.
then it's just like double whammy, right? That can
Yeah, and especially when it's, I don't know what your budget and kind of like everything looks like, but sadly, I mean, I've tried to diversify and kind of spread things a little bit, but everything is right there at the end of the month. So, when something happens that you require some funds and it happens at the first of the month, it's like, crap, what am I going to do till I got like a
Well,
couple
I
of
live on
weeks
credit
here.
cards, so for me, it's digging myself out of credit card debt, and this just
Yeah,
screwed
well,
me
I
back
don't. Yeah, we
into
don't do
credit
that. So
cards.
yeah,
So yeah, I'm still
yeah, I
trying
hear
to
you.
pull out of debt.
Now,
Once I get out of debt, it'll be a little different. But
yeah, and
so
things like this, and probably last time I had a laptop go down, I probably had a very similar conversation about the whole credit card thing. But yeah, we
yeah,
got into issues with credit cards back in 2000, 99, 2000, maybe 2001, and I said never again. I'll pay for what I've got and I own it, and if I can't afford it, then that's just the way it goes. If it's something big enough, I'll go to the bank and I'll deal with one of the actually a credit union. I don't hardly even deal with banks anymore, but I'll go with one of them and get some type of loan or do something. But and it's rough. It makes it tough when you're of that mind and you have that stance. But I don't like the credit card thing. I don't like owing money.
no, I hear you. So anyway, let's get out of that. Um, we're still waiting for Tony. I've got a poll up there though. It said, "Whose guns would you like to borrow?" Trying to come up with a poll. So Tony's clovers are mine, and you're winning with 71%. That's weird. I guess people that want to shoot a bunch of revolvers and shotguns, I
They
guess.
like fun stuff, man. Man, I got a few cool things sprinkled around in there. The Tech 9 is something not many people get to experience, for example,
Hmm.
or the
So
50 for that matter.
that's true. Um, and it depends on how they're reading that too. Like, would you have to go to New Jersey? Would you have to go to Arizona, or would you have to go to Texas, or were they thinking they're going to grab our stuff and go? Nobody's voting for Tony though. So Tony just got here. I guess your guns are safe, Tony.
Well, that's funny because I didn't even vote for me. I voted for Clover too. I was like, hey, Clover's got some cool stuff, man. I want to check out some of those. Who are they? The P-35. I can't even think of the name of the company now.
Oh, the Gerson stuff.
Yeah, the Gersons. I was.
I don't have a P-35.
I thought you checked those out.
No, I don't. Well, I've shot plenty of them. Don't get me wrong,
Mhm.
but I don't have one here.
Oh, okay.
Now, can't say for sure, but I may for the end of the year.
Yeah, we were talking about it over a shot at least.
Kind of depends on. Yeah, kind of depends on. Honestly, it kind of depends on whether or not one of those comes in or not between now and the end of the year is going to depend on what goes on with the 2311. They've been having fits with that one. And so I've got the 6-inch 2311 kind of slated for me because, FUD and range toy and that sort of thing over the whole carry deal. But yeah, if that drags out too much longer, then yeah, I may have to get a P-35 in to play with for sure.
All right. Well, we only have 2 real questions in the database. They're both from the end of July, so we're not doing too bad. We haven't had any in August yet, but we're at something like 900 in this database, 900 questions. So anybody that wants to can go over to askunquestions.com or send people over there if they've got questions, and then either we know off the top of our head, sometimes we research it, sometimes we deep delve into the answers, and sometimes they're just not as whatever. But we'll address them if you put them in there. The first one is looking at a small pocket 22 long rifle, semi-auto pistol, trying to find one with a left-handed mag release. There aren't any. Why? I know why, but I don't know if we all have the same answer.
There's not as many left-handed people as one might think, I guess. I don't know.
It's because you're an abomination.
But they don't make that many of those kind of handguns either, quite honestly. But
they don't make that many rifles. I mean, let's be honest. Yeah. You're not. I mean, if it sounds fair or not, I mean, the left-handed people aren't big enough segment of the population to justify the expense or just changing up a design, because it's not like, oh, just put a hole on this side too.
Yeah, it's got to be a really good selling, really sought out make and model. You know what I mean? To where there's a demand, and when you've got a little pocket semi-auto 22, those are not high demand firearms. And so to see somebody completely change things up to go left-hand mag release, that's a tough call for a company to try to make, because they're not going to sell enough, I don't think, to recoup the tooling, changing the tooling over and everything they got to do. It sounds simple. You think about it and you think, oh, well, all you got to do is open CAD and hit a reverse button, and you would think it would be that simple, kind of like mirroring an image in Photoshop or something. But like when you get into the machining of it, not so much. It's a little bit different.
Well, and there's other parts, so if they get in the way or the path of other things, and I just looked, it says, according to the internet, depending on who you ask on the internet and what answer you get, 10 to 15% of people are left-handed in the world. So,
but I mean, let's talk about how to help with the problem. What you do is you look for one with a pocket carry 22, small 22 with a European heel release for the mag. And there you go. I mean, it might not be exactly what you want, but it's ambi. It's ambi.
No, it's an answer. I mean, and it's a workable way to address it because it is, and you can, well, there's other versions, but that's the most common in that particular kind of pistol. I was
I
just going
know.
to say that the reason they don't do it is because that's just another model, and there's no precedent for that. There's no, almost except for maybe scissors. There's hardly anything there's a left-handed model of. So it's just not a tool that enough people have demanded a left model. So it would create all those other parts and everything. So you'd have to learn more as a gunsmith. There'd be more parts inventory. There'd be more models to deal with, and that would just, they don't even do that for color. They hardly do it for caliber. There's a big debate on when they do it. When they increase the number of models to add another caliber to it. So adding it left-handed, every time they add a caliber, another one in left-handed, potentially. So it's just, I don't think they want to even start down that.
Well,
And that's why only a couple of smaller companies have attempted to address it. But then I think the biggest one is left-handed people that I know could care less. They totally adapt anyway to everything in real life, so they don't care. To them, they just think of their mag release being the same way we do when we're shooting a gun that has it on the other side. Have you ever picked up a gun with a left-handed mag release? Are you unable to do it? No, you just go, oh, wow, now I do it with my middle finger instead of my thumb.
Yeah, or left-hand bolt or whatever. Yeah, that's what I was fixing to say. I don't know, I'm not going to pretend to know the plight or whatever you call it, the left-handed person. But most of the people I know that are left-handed, I've never heard anybody complain. Now, I totally get with, quote unquote, I wish there was one that was left-handed. But don't we all wish things? Like I wished I had a Lamborghini sitting in the driveway too. But, when I go, because I do shoot both hands, regularly, just playing around and practicing and training and other stuff. I go by trigger finger. I don't go by middle finger. Like I bring my trigger finger down for a release, and so and I'm not saying that's right or wrong or anything else. I'm just saying that, while it's awkward for me to manipulate and shoot left-handed, there's a little bit of awkwardness there. If somebody was used to doing everything left-handed, I would think it would even be less awkward, but I could be wrong about that.
Oh no, that'd be like us using our right hand to do something, like you're maybe more dexterous, whatever.
Dexterity. Yeah, more dexterity in it. Yeah, exactly.
And then I think there's also an issue when I used to, when I was young, I used to think ambidextrous stuff was the way to go. Have the controls on both sides. It's always there. It doesn't matter which hand you're holding it in, you're good to go. And that answers all issues because you just engineer the gun to be built that way. And there's just the one set of parts, the ambidextrous parts, right? There's no left or right. It's just always ambidextrous. It seems like a great idea. So is communism. The problem is now you've got controls on both sides. So Murphy's Law smacks you on your other side all the time. Now your slide is dropping when you don't want it to because you're trying to look mag or whatever. Yeah. So I think having controls on one side or the other, there's going to be a manual of arms, but it's going to allow you to do things like slap home a charging handle. If there was a safety on that side, now you're also disengaging the safety as you slap it, or whatever. There's a lot of guns I'm thinking of right now. But I think that's an issue, is that they put them on one side or the other so that there can be a manual of arms for the gun. And whether or not it's right or wrong, or you like it, or it's ergonomic for you, that's a whole other thing. But I think that's one of the reasons they build them that way. And I prefer guns that aren't ambi, because then you start weakening frames. There's lots of cuts and slides that, 99% of the time you don't need that lever over there, but there's always a cut in the frame. There's always that big, like Tony's saying, now it's a wing or something instead of a lever. And how do you pivot that? Like now the spring's got to be way different or looser or something. So you're always sacrificing stuff to make. It's like German stuff. Like, oh yeah, we can add 17 more parts, no problem.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of ambidextrous controls. I'd almost have, and I don't know, it's for range toys and things like that. I mean, it is what it is, and I can deal with just about anything. So I'm not knocking on it from that perspective. But if it was something, let's say that, I was left-handed, I would rather have a dedicated right hand than I'd even rather have an ambi. If they made everything left-handed, right, I'd rather have that being right-handed than I had ambi, and for the reasons you're talking about, like those having controls on both sides is just to me is awkward, and it's just increased risk, like you're talking about, of bumping something or rubbing or catching or whatever, and I don't like it. But it's certainly easier for companies to do, I think, to do ambi than it is to do both a left and right-handed model, completely separate models. So I do understand why companies choose to go ambi on some things.
And I think it also gives them the ability to add one more feature. We have ambi this, ambi that, when you're going to compare them to other stuff. And people like features. I mean, just based on the number, if I have a Glock has, this, that. But if you get the FN, you have that plus ambi, mag release plus ambi slide release. And they put it out as a feature. And just as we've said, not really much of a feature that will be used.
Yeah.
And
That's a great
most
point.
left-handed shooters, have learned to shoot right-handed.
Well, and you're right.
Manipulate the controls. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead, man.
No, you're fine. I was agreeing with you. I was going to add to it and say that you're right, that there are a certain amount of people out there that they buy according to the features, even if it's not features they're going to even use. Like they just want, they want the top of the line, as many bells and whistles and things on it, and they may never even use them. But when they're bragging to their buddies or showing off or whatever, it just makes them feel better to know that they have the whatever model it is with all the bells and whistles.
See, I got to live that through growing up with 1911s and revolvers, and I'll acknowledge that a high power was a big deal. Well, not a big deal, but it was a different type of gun than a 1911. But nobody I knew had them, so I never got into them or anything. And then there was the Smith & Wessons, right? There was a couple of metal guns, and I think aluminum frames or alloy frames were kind of the, oh my goodness, alloy frames. That was a whole debate, at the shop on whether or not that was worth doing. Maybe there was new calibers once in a while. But what the heck? We're talking about
the features and stuff.
Yeah, I'm trying to think. Oh, well, I got to cut my teeth on the P85 or whatever I had. I can't remember anymore. But either I had a P85 or a P89. I think I might have had the 89. No, I think I had the 85s. But you know what I'm saying?
The P series Rugers. Yeah.
Yeah. Which the first ones that I could get a hold of, they were inexpensive. So I'm always bragging. I'm the first to acknowledge that cheap guns are cheap. Like, that's what they are. Like, they cost less because they put less into them. And I lived them. I had a bunch of them, and they are what they are. But I'm just saying, I got to experience ambi in those guns, which were, I don't know, you've had them. I think you guys both had them, right? They're cast.
Oh yeah,
they're nice, but they're just, you break one of those, it's a whole different kind of. It costs more to repair one of those than it does to just go get another one because of that cast frame and everything. So anyway, so just experiencing all that ambi parts and all the extra stuff and knowing how fragile they were, and out here in the sand, there's things. And I'm not saying those are the most engineered guns or nothing, but that's where I was like, okay, ambi is neat, but like you say, I'm not trying to get. Maybe if I had to equip somebody who was going to be wearing mittens half the year and didn't really care about guns, and I just had to teach them enough to not hurt themselves and to hurt the bad people, maybe that kind of gun, I could see the idea of it.
Well, and bringing up the P series Rugers, that was maybe my first experience getting into, like, you don't I don't think people realize the features that the P series Ruger brought into play. Whether you're talking about do what now?
The decocker, that was huge.
Yeah, that's what I was fixing to say. The features, I was going to say the decocker. That's one of my first experiences with like decocking features. Was that, but the ambi controls, you're right. I mean, there was a lot of new things that kind of come into play with that P series Ruger.
Yeah, I mean, and as gun guys that were gun guys then or gun kids, dude, it was like, yeah, it has this, it has that. Why would anybody ever use anything other than this? Be
Yeah.
serious. We didn't
And then
know.
the carbine came out. You could have a bunch of mags practically. Like there was a reason to have a bunch of mags. And the mags were bigger. They were double stack mags. Everybody acts like double stacks no big deal. There was a time when there was 1911s and double stacks was a big deal. So they were 9mm double stacks, and you could buy a bunch of them and have a couple of guns, have the carbine, and still, and you could buy those 30 round mags for the carbines, put them in your guns. Plus, they were in that one movie, a couple of movies, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were a big deal at the time, and the controls what were on the slide. And again, I didn't think that was a big deal back then. I thought that was cool. And that's when I figured out, okay, I don't like stuff up on the slide. I don't need my mechanisms to be moving all around and being on both sides. It's like putting wings on your slide. I think Berettas put stuff up on the slide.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I mean, your
Some people like
safety decocker and all. Yeah.
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 But that's where I learned not to. I didn't like all that stuff up there. If I could put all that on the frame again, I'm happy.
I prefer it on the Beretta. Like I prefer for that, and I don't mind it on the P series.
And it'll depend because we're also talking a gun that has a slide, the metal part of the gun that goes back and forth because it's essentially a Browning design, I guess, right? So the slide goes back and forth on the outside of the frame. Some guns, the slide goes narrower and it's on the inside or whatever, and there the controllers aren't going to be like wings catching everything,
right?
Jamming on stuff. Because that's the other thing. Those ambi decockers on the Rugers. I don't know how often you guys went hunting in the winter, but they'd be decocking all the dang time on me. Pull my gun out, decocked. Like, what the hell? Like, they'd just be always flipping on me. I didn't like them.
Yeah. Well, as far as the whole decocker thing, I can take it or leave it. I never, some people, I'm sure, have a valid use for it, and that's fine. That's why they exist, and go for it. But it doesn't matter to me either way. I mean, I very, very rarely do I use a safety, and very rarely do I use the decocker if it has that feature as well, and especially in something that's double action.
It came from because of the time frame where people were coming from revolvers, and there's just no experience, either no experience with semis or just trust a semi. So I need something that makes it more familiar.
Yeah.
Well, as someone that carried and shot a CZ75 pre-B, I don't know. Sometimes I kind of like the thought of that damn decock as I'm lowering the hammer down on a live round, because
there was no hammer though.
I mean, on CZ75, it was a hammer. It was just I'm lowering the hammer down on this, if I want to work on my double action trigger pull at the range or something like that, for that first shot. But it really was unnecessary because you carry it cocked and locked. But it was just something I wanted to work on. So what I did with my CZ just to work on the double action trigger pull on a revolver, on a semi-auto, or whatever, what I'm working on is just the principles, the marksmanship fundamentals of being able to pull the trigger without moving the gun. Yeah. And that's one of the cool ways I would do it. It would drive my wife nuts. You and that goddamn clicking all day. I dry fire for like 15 minutes at the light bulb in the house. You know what I mean? At the light switch in the house, and in another room. But all she hears click, click, click for like 15 straight minutes. That was the cool part about it. But I guess as I'm talking it out, decocker's kind of unnecessary if you got a good safety that clicks on and off.
Well, and we're so used to strikers now that people don't remember again that there was revolvers, and almost everybody had revolvers with hammers. And the other thing is we weren't carrying that much. Some people were carrying, but most of the time we're taking our guns to the range, and you're out there shooting, and you got around. It was sort of like, oh, I got a lever now. Watch, click. Now I can take the thing out and still have to rack the side to get the round out. But I don't know. I have a little lever, so I think it was sign of the times. It's kind of like.
Well, that's a great point. I mean, up until just a few years ago, quite honestly, I mean, there's been a lot of states come on board with the whole carry thing, right? And so, definitely 15 years ago, 20 years ago, I mean, for sure. I mean, up until that point, like, carrying wasn't that big of a thing. And I would contend up until maybe even 5 or 6 years ago, we've seen a tremendous explosion in the number of people that carry. So, there hasn't been that much thought as far as I think the consumer, the end user side, thinking about that necessarily. It's been a fairly recent thing.
100% agree. Pretty much, it started growing, and I think 2020 and the mostly peaceful protest and all of that brought a whole bunch of stuff on. The flood was the tidal wave was already moving by then, but that the way society was actually sped everything up. I think it might have been longer and drawn out, but what was actually happening in front of people stopped a lot of the bull crap that would have resisted people carrying, especially constitutional carry. Dude, we're 26 states now. Did we go over to 27 yet? Like more than half the country has constitutional carry, and and with the Bruin decision, regardless of how many obstacles they keep throwing up in front of us here in Jersey, we still have carry. And I didn't think that would happen. I signed up for a fight that I didn't think we'd win in my lifetime, but I signed up for it anyway, and we won. So it's awesome, and that's creating a lot of carry and a lot of different features that sometimes aren't needed. But like I said before, it's a feature, and people go for it. And if you don't know, you don't know. As I was talking to one of the shooters last night at the competition I was at, she was like, I was a new shooter, so everything that whoever I'm following on YouTube says is a good idea. It seems like a good idea. If the commercial is well made, when I run into it on YouTube from the company, yeah, I need a decocker. It's a feature.
So the question was looking at a small pocket 22 long rifle, semi-auto pistol, trying to find one with a left-handed magazine release. There aren't any. So we kind of explained. And plus, I guess in this case, all of these guns were designed a long time ago when I don't think there was very many. Maybe there was some custom shotguns left-handed and a few bolt actions left-handed because those were one-offs and you could make them that way easier. But when these 22 long rifle automatic pistols, when's the last time one of those was developed or invented? I mean, except for weird, rare new ones, there's nothing semi-auto coming out in that realm. Maybe from Kel-Tec.
Hold on. So, what did you say?
22 semis. There's the small ones. They're not still being invented, are they? Well, actually, what am I saying? No, I'll shut up. There's the Life Card. There's that guy from Washington who has the 10-round magazine that's at, kind of vertical. Wait, is it perpendicular? They go up and down and they drop in and go, I forget what that thing's called.
Well, as I'm sitting here, because we're talking about it, I realize here's my Ruger SR22, and it has ambi controls, both ambi decocker.
That's a fairly new design.
Yeah, ambi decocker, ambi safety, and ambi mag release.
But it's Ruger. They like
that. But I'm just saying, I mean, we're talking, it could be a pocket pistol, the shorter one. I have the 4.5-inch barreled one. But, oh, here you go. But I think this is the only new one that I know of off the top of my head, because and what do you call a pocket pistol? Because that's changed also.
True.
That's changed from, I mean, C-caps, they were considered pocket pistols, right? But so were the Walter PPKs.
Yeah, the Bursas and stuff. People would call them pocket pistols, I think.
So, I mean, the size of the pocket pistols changed over the years, but I think this still qualifies. So, I mean, if they're in the market for one, here it is. But you said they just asked why. They didn't ask if there was one.
Yeah, and I think your answer is the best. You get one of those little Berettas with the tip-up barrels, and they make them with mag releases that are buttons or what do you call them? European buttons down there. Or wait, there's the European
release.
Style. So you get something like a Jennings or something in their Makarov style where they've got a, what do you call it? Like a little clip at the base of the mag, and that's ambidextrous.
The heel release, that's what they used to call it.
Heel, yeah, exactly. Yeah. But looking for a small pocket 22 long rifle. Another reason they don't make those anymore is because I think that's about the worst combination of things you can get for a defense gun. 22 is rim fire, have the highest percentage of issue with the primer because of the physical way it's made and everything. Carrying it around and jostling it around, you're just making it worse. It's not a very useful or powerful, even if it does go off. Having it in the smallest thing possible makes it least useful and effective, makes it just as unlikely to go off when you need it to, makes it much as likely as possible as to have some kind of a malfunction or issue cycling in a semi-auto. And yeah, the magazines are tiny and they don't work, and the things are tiny and they're hard to manipulate unless you get really strong fingers and you're really good at its manual of arms. So I just think there's so many stronger, for almost the same physical size, a little strong, anything 380, stupid 9mm, and almost up to double stack it these days, in the size of some of the, like I'm thinking of a Beretta Minx or whatever it is. I don't know. Mine's a Minx. What's the Bobcat? The little 22.
Bobcat, Tomcat.
You can get like a 9mm that small nowadays, right? Like a little car, a 380 or something is almost that same size. So you can get a much more reliable caliber and useful caliber for, well, I don't know about price, but for the same size.
Yeah, sometimes you wonder. I mean, if you have one, you got one, and you use what you have.
That's true.
But sometimes when I'm talking to people, because we all do it, because we're the gun guys that a lot of people know in our circle, and they're like, "Oh, I want this." All right, do you want this gun? You want this gun because you have some, you've attached something to it. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I want a Walter PPQ or PPK, excuse me, PPK. How do I carry that? And I'm like, why are you getting, or what are you getting for? Oh, I want to carry it. Why you chose that? Because I think they're cool. All right, cool. Then there's no argument for me, right? I'm like, yeah, there are better guns for it, but if that's what you want because it's the James Bond gun and you want to have one, cool. But you're leaving a lot of stuff on the table that weighs less, holds more rounds, will not chew your friggin' web of your hand, will give you hammer bite. But okay, this is what you want. This is what you get. And I think that's where that 22 thing, oh, I want something lightweight that I can just toss in my pocket and run out to the mailbox. I'm like, to me, that's something, especially now with the, what's the holster that Sarah and John came up with?
Oh, yeah.
Where
you don't really need pants or anything.
Yeah, Enigma.
Yeah.
When you have that option, I'm saying carry your regular carry gun, put it in an Enigma holster, and that way, if anything horrible happens while you're at the mailbox, you're not trying to shoot a vest pocket gun that you kind of suck at because you don't want to shoot it a lot because it chews up your hand, or it's uncomfortable to shoot, or you haven't really trained with it because the magazines are expensive or hard to find or whatever. I just look at it as you have other options when it comes to stuff like that. And I don't think a lot of us are exploring it because how many people know about this holster? We're in the business. I mean, we know these people by first name, by sight, or even are friends with them. That's why we know. So who else would know if you're not really into the gun thing? You just bought your carry firearm, or and then you realize that you don't want that Glock 30. It kind of pulls your pants down. It's like they change holsters, and I'll take care of that problem. I actually had this conversation.
Well, I think what also is the demise of the 22 semi-auto pocket gun is the 38 revolver or the 357 revolver 5-shot that you can put in your pocket, and it might be heavier than the 22, but you're getting substantially more capacity or ability or whatever. So that's another reason I think, in addition to what you're saying, just more people, it doesn't, I mean, you can carry around a full-size gun. It's what are they, you put on your clothes, you put on your gun. It's just some people put on a belt, on a pair of pants and a knife and their phone or something, or their keys even. I mean, people are different, depending on what you're doing. If you're on a ranch somewhere and you're going out to your mailbox and you're worried about like a snake or I don't know, snake, I guess. I don't know what you'd be worried about on your own ranch, a rabid sheep or something, then maybe a small. But if you're really worried about it, you seriously have a reason to be concerned, then yeah, why wouldn't you want at least a Glock 19 level, and like you're saying, in a holster that's able to be drawn from, and you would just be wearing that. Like, if you're seriously concerned, how can it be that much more peaceful inside your house? Like, oh, I'm only concerned when I'm outside, but when I'm inside, threat level goes down. Like, now you're either in that threat level or you ain't.
No, I got that screen door. That stops everything. The screen door is a magic barrier. It stops all intruders. But yeah, that's how I look at it. I forgot, like, it was their specific incident, but there was something. It was a self-defense thing, and the husband ended up having some little ass pocket pistol that was hard to shoot, not much practice. And it's like, well, congratulations, you put yourself in that category. You got to think about it. It's like, well, if something happens, well, what do you think is going to happen? And then why would you carry the smallest, hardest to use thing for that happening that it's a life or death situation? Either it is or it isn't. I mean, you need to take it seriously. That's just my 2 cents, but that's where I come in on that.
All right. Well, we've got 20 minutes and then Clover has to run out of here. So
Okay.
We got a second question. It's a different person, different day and everything, but somehow here's the question. Looking for a shorter self/home defense 12 gauge option for a lefty. I don't think they mean communist. I think they mean the left-handed.
Hold on a second. Let's see if they still make this. I saw they came out with it. Now, what were
I've
the
looked it up,
combos?
and it's legal for left-handed people to have guns, so we can answer this legally.
Yeah, I'm looking up to see if it's still available. Yep, it is. Model 37 Ithaca. Model 37 Ithaca. You load it and it ejects from the bottom. Comes in 20 gauge and 12 gauge, 18.5-inch barrel, 20-inch barrel, 5-shot or 8-shot.
Yeah.
I've never had one. I never had an Ithaca. That's from Ithaca, New York, I guess.
Yeah, Ithaca Gun Company. But yeah, they I think it was Nam? At least that's where I saw it. A lot of dudes in Vietnam were using it because, yeah, you load it from the bottom, it ejects from the bottom.
Yeah, and there was stuff, you would put stuff on your gun. Those were ideal, right? If you put any kind of light or some kind of other accessory, or you were shooting something like a hook or something, like you'd use those kind because they ejected, like you're saying, one place.
Yeah, so there you go. Cool. Wow. Holy crap. I just looked at the price. You guys ever look at the prices and stuff?
Yeah, it's going to be a little pricey. Ithaca 37 is a classic, iconic shotgun. So yeah, you're definitely going to pay for it. I mean, and that's a World War II era shotgun too, by the way. They were designed in like 33, I want to say.
And this
So
is new.
They've been around. So they've been around.
Yeah, this is a new one. This is $1,000.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Where do y'all fall on the Keltec KSG, the bullpup shotgun that has dual tubes? So it's a bullpup and dual tube, so it can hold pretty decent capacity. And it's a pump.
Yeah. I'm out on anything bullpup. I'm just out.
I'm not out on anything bullpup.
I mean, that's built around being a bullpup, and it's a pump action shotgun. So, I mean, usually bullpup issues are trigger issues, or maybe, the way that action happens next to your face or something. So,
right.
I'm just wondering, what about bullpups? You mean the way that you hold them?
I don't like the. There's something about the way the manual of arms are typically is with a bullpup. It's where the action is located. Like you're over the top of the action a lot of times with your face, and I don't like that. Triggers typically are, and like there's can be exceptions. There's tons of stuff out there that I may not be remembering or may not have experienced, but and then you've got again, like you said, with the triggers. Typically, the triggers are absolutely horrible because it's basically rods and things that
It's like a
are
trigger on stilts.
extended down. Yeah, extended down to actually trip the trigger or whatever. It's weird.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
don't care
you're
for
right.
it.
Or they
You're
trip
right.
the trigger, but then they have long rods doing whatever the trigger was supposed to do. So there's still long rods on one side of it or the other.
Well, it's like pulling
And
the
then
trigger with chopsticks.
Yeah.
and then with the KSG, I get the KSG's double tube, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Have you even
with
shot one? Have you even shot one,
oh
Peter?
yeah, I've shot
Yeah.
them before. I'm just trying to remember the what we're talking about. I don't know. I mean, there's something about the way that the weight's distributed and stuff too with bullpups. It's just odd, but I don't know. It's a personal
Well,
thing. If you like them,
I
shoot them.
I like bullpups. Um, I like the idea of bullpups, and when it comes to running them, look, that's the gun you chose. It's unusual. It's not a common setup, so you're gonna have to learn its unique way. That's for me. KSG, I don't like, and this is coming from me. This is coming from me, the guy that likes high points, and I question KSG's build quality. How's that?
Yeah.
Um,
Keltec's got a big problem in that area. Innovative is all get out, man. God,
mhm.
but the execution oftentimes with them is lacking.
Yeah, 100%. Shot the KSG back when you could actually have that because of magazine capacity in New Jersey. It was 100% legal. Didn't like it. Did not like. I wanted to love it because again, I have no problem with bullpups. But then when you look at the execution of it, like how do you handle misfeeds? Um, the operation of it when you switch over to the second tube. You're telling me that I have all this ammo on hand because in a gunfight, yada yada blab blab, but also in the same gunfight, I have to reach under my armpit and flip it over to the other magazine. So there's that. Also, the KS7, which is obviously the 7-shot version of that, it was so narrow that it felt like I was getting kicked in my freaking shoulder by a mule every time I pulled the trigger, and I was using birdshot. Like it was just hitting me totally bad. I have a video of me shooting, and I'm just flinching like you wouldn't believe. And I'm a guy that shoots Mosin Nagants and Soviet rifles, full battle rifle stuff with metal butt plates, and I have no issue with it. And this KS7 was a problem. So I
Yeah,
look at them like,
the sub 2000 for me, and mine is the Gen 1. So the Gen
mhm,
2, like I haven't shot the Gen 2 enough that I even remember, but having the Gen 1s, um, and it's not that it's 9mm or 40. It's not like it's bad recoil or anything like that.
mhm,
But the problem is the narrow stock, and then the nubbins or the ribs or whatever that are on that stock just
yeah,
it's uncomfortable after a while. You're like, wow. Like if you put an aftermarket pad or something like that over it, that would of course, and they do make things like that. Then that would of course alleviate a lot of that. But yeah, just the design on the butt pad portion of that stock and the stock overall. It's like it's innovative. It's kind of cool, but like you could have spent just a little more time and thought with the execution on that or something, and I think it would have been so much better.
and I think that's with like almost everything they make. If you took a little bit more time,
It's
like
like they
who's
almost right. It's like, oh, it's
almost.
so close. It's so close. You gotta like it, and you got to, it's like you gotta say it's so close that you gotta say, wow, this is cool, and it's
Hmm.
so close that you gotta say, wow, this is innovative, and
But
it's so close that you can say, wow, this is fun. But at the end of the day, it's just close.
at the,
It's
at
not. It's
the,
not
at
there
the,
yet.
at the end of the day, Ruger comes, looks at that, improves it just a little bit, and
This
sells
is
a million
true.
of them.
Yeah,
That's
smooth the edges
exactly what
down.
happens.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. A little bit better material, smooth the edges down a little bit. Yeah.
Right. So Snob is saying that if the National Firearms Act of 1934 didn't exist, then anyone or no one would even think about a bolt
Ah,
action.
yeah, they would. Overall package and everything else is just
Mm-hmm.
shorter with bullpup. I mean, I get, like I said, I cannot like them and understand why they exist at the same time. And
Yeah, I
they exist.
understand
They
what
exist
you.
for a reason. But I get what he's saying. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. If NFA wasn't a thing, oh yeah, freaking 10-inch.
Have you
You
shot a
know,
calico?
Model 37 would be with a little bit shorter stock would be amazing.
Have you shot a
Yeah.
calico?
Shot a what? A calico?
Calico.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. The Spaceballs gun. Yeah. Oh yeah.
I understand where Snob is coming from, and I think he's right about the civilian application of it. But understand that bullpups were being looked into by militaries pre-World War II and pretty much every decade since then, and they're not, limited by the NFA. So they were using it for that short overall length. But you still had the velocity of the round, so you weren't losing that. But yeah, for civilian
Yep.
application for most people, it's the NFA thing.
And in a shotgun, it really doesn't matter much.
Mm.
Well, I think bullpup in general, putting the action behind the trigger is, unless there's something that gets changed, it's not gonna. Well, what am I trying to say? I guess it can work. Obviously, like the Styrog or something isn't a gun that's redesigned backwards, but when they do the redesign to some existing things, I guess that's when we're talking about the problems with bullpups. But something like a P90, that was never any other gun, right?
Or the Tavors are pretty solid. Seems like.
Right, and I don't know if the Tavor comes from something. It's its own thing.
I don't
Doesn't
either. Yeah, I don't know.
But I guess all I'm thinking about is, there's still, I think, some advantages to having your ammunition go forward to your barrel. So I was thinking if you had the Calico magazine going forward, and however it's going to end up feeding for the design or whatever, but just essentially, if you didn't need a stock for some application and you wanted to put your ammunition up next to your barrel, like, I don't know if that would be, I guess that alone isn't a bullpup, but that could lend itself to a bullpup, because if you put your action further back, you've got even more room for maggots for ammo. But I can't imagine too many things where you need that much ammo. Like Tony said,
Well,
people that don't have rules, and they haven't designed that because they don't need that.
like PS90, right? Or
Yeah.
P90, whichever one.
That's about the
Bull-
closest thing to what I'm thinking of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have 50 round mag. You have bullpup design. You have I don't know how the trigger is on a real one, so whatever. Because I have I have mine that's a Ruger 1022, and you run into bullpup problems just like Clover said. With mag change is in a weird place, but you get used to it. And the trigger pull is definitely not a Ruger 1022 trigger pull, but I already had the BX trigger in, so it made for a better trigger pull than I would with a stock Ruger 1022. But it's still in that bullpup configuration. Wow. It's still in that bullpup configuration.
How fast are you going? And you're still talking on the chat?
I was fixing to say I didn't think they had rednecks with loud trucks in New Jersey. Wow.
Yeah, they hood necks. I mean,
Is that a truck or a motorcycle?
I think there was a motorcycle.
Or he just lives at the top of a hill, and that was just somebody going nowhere.
Jake breaking.
I don't know which one to click on anymore. It's nice. Drake said, "You give enough engineers and scientists an unlimited budget, and they'll come up with anything." It's probably true. If I'm missing one, let me know. But we got one from 500 Magnum that's ammunition related. Why didn't the 357 SIG ever catch on, as it's an interesting caliber?
The Texas Rangers and the Highway Patrol here used it for many, 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 many years. So I don't know what you
So
would
the U.S.
consider. I don't know what you
Air
would consider catching on, but there it is.
Marshal Service Air Marshals used it too, um, because you had the same problem that people did with the 40. It just kicked more. It was the same size as the 40, so it's not like it shrank any, being a 357 SIG. Same, just 40 Smith and Wesson problems. And when you
So
got around to it,
millimeter neck down to a 357
Right.
bullet.
Yeah. 40
Or-
neck down to a 9, basically.
or
Mhm.
40 neck to 9, okay. And then I think whenever you get a necked pistol bullet, problems.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
reloading,
Yeah.
It's never going to catch on because there's just too many
Especially in a
complications
handgun.
reloading and playing with it and everything.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially in a handgun, right? I mean, if it was in some type of a submachine gun or something, it would be a
If the
little better.
military adopted it and there was tons of
Yeah.
surplus laying around, people would still probably cut it down to a 380 or something. But yeah, it's just that the neck part was too complicated, I think. And that's SIG, right? SIG is like, we need something cool, something that looks good. It looks cool, I think. And the bullet, as far as bullets go, it looks cooler than a lot of bullets.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, I mean, they're doing, SIG did nothing different than Smith and Wesson tried. Glock beat them to it, which was funny. But, it's common for, look at Winchester, and especially over the last few years. Now we're talking about rifle cartridges, but look at Winchester in the last few years at all the different things that they've had that's come out. Was it the 6.8 Western, and trying to think of all the different ones that they've introduced and come
Mhm.
out. So, it's not uncommon for these for companies, and it may be unusual for. And I know 500 Magnum. He's a cartridge nerd. I mean, I don't know where
Mhm.
evidently he spends hours a day just researching cartridges or something. But anyway, um, most people are not that way. So the vast majority of folks, they hear about something and they're like, "Oh, I've never heard of that." And 10 millimeter, for example, when 10 millimeter started becoming more popular, and more people know what 10 millimeter is and they understand it now. But as of a year or maybe two ago, you said 10 millimeter to people and they would think you were lying. Like, "Oh, I don't know what you're talking about. You mean 9
What's
millimeter?
that?
What is that?" Or the people that when 10 millimeter stuff started coming out again and becoming popular, they would go, "Oh, this is just a fad. This is just a new thing, and it's a fad." And it's like, well, it's been around forever. It's not a fad. 300 Blackout was that way with the Whisper when it come out, right? So you've
Mhm.
got you've got companies that are always looking to kind of one up and create their own thing to get a little more name recognition and hold in the market, I think. And then, hey, we can build a little better mousetrap or whatever it might be. And maybe they do it to try some new designs. Maybe they're like, hey, we're going to try this new design. And if we design this around this special cartridge, right, like it's going to make this design, we'll be able to test it out, flesh everything out a little easier around this particular cartridge. And then if everything works out, then they can back down, like the 357 SIG, for example. And it's like, okay, now we know this will work. Now we can try it in a 40. Now we can try it in a 9 and some more mainstream stuff. So it's a springboard, an R&D type springboard a lot of times. There's a lot of reasons I think that you see companies that develop their own cartridges, but it's nothing new. I mean, it was happening 200 years ago.
Well, my other thing with the 357 SIG, yeah, I want to check because one of the most legendary stop, like 98% stopping power, was supposedly the 357 Magnum round fired 125 grain or projectile. That had like when you I can't think of the name of the two gentlemen, Marshall and something, or the name of these guys that did a study on one shot stops, and the king of the one shot stop was the 125 grain 357 Magnum. So when they came out with the 357 SIG, they were trying to get those same performance numbers. So that's what that was about. Because like you said, companies always want to look for that step up, that next thing to get people into it. And it worked for multiple
Oh,
jurisdictions.
Yeah, it worked for SIG for quite a while. Yeah, for sure.
So I
Yeah.
like to look at things on a timeline, right? So you have the 9mm was, I think, older than all of them, but whatever. It
1908.
didn't catch on, and yeah, like way old. And then it didn't catch on here, at least the United States, until somewhere in the 80s, probably with the Glock, and a little bit before with some of the Smith and Wesson things. But the Glock certainly had the 9mm infrastructure to work on. It didn't have to fight the 9mm, and then it was a perfect match. It was like peanut butter was trying to come onto the market, and then Reese's, or like peanut butter was a 9mm, and Glock was the Reese's peanut butter cups. People might have been skeptical of peanut butter, but now they're like, oh, well, I can eat a Reese's peanut butter cup all day, so I'm okay with peanut butter now. So I think that it was just a good compliment to each other at the time. So anyway, that's the 84-ish area. Then you get 10mm being developed in the 80s, early 80s, and then what's his name, Cooper, and the 10mm, the early 10mm were large metal guns. So large metal guns coming onto the scene at the same time, small caliber plastic guns coming onto the scene. It was like Mad Max vehicles versus, I don't know, 911s or something, like, I don't know, something from Europe that's fast and trendy or whatever. So I think that's an element to it. And then you get to the 1990 when 40 comes along, and that's when it comes and goes, right? Or it does what it does, and that's when it was 90 when 40 comes along, 94 when the SIG 357 comes along. So they knew what happened with the 40, but they hadn't seen a 45 gap at all. They've only seen the 9mm and then the 10mm, and they knew what happened with the 10mm. It was too much. Then they saw the 40, and then they think they were thinking to some extent, like, we've got this opportunity. 40 came along, Smith and Wesson came along, but we can put our what do you call it? What do they call it? In that
Brand?
put their thing in the game and try to speak. So I guess they probably figured either that at the same time that the time is ripe, or that if it worked for 40, now's the time to jump on it. Because then we don't see anything happen at all until Gap in 2003. So, and Glock was weird. They're trying to accomplish different things more. They're trying to accomplish something for competition shooting.
Also looking at an international market too, big time.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that is, like you say, like the anyway, I just thought it'd be interesting to look at it in that perspective, that when 357 came along, it was after 10 and 40 were the only two splashes. So 40 was the fad, if anything. 9mm was a fad because people didn't think, people like Cooper and people that were like 1911s and 357s and 44s, we need knockdown power. We need stopping power. We don't need capacity. And I don't know, law enforcement experience or something changed people's minds.
What happened in the late 60s is it's just funny when it comes to cartridges and what works. People talk about the knockdown power of 45, but police departments were not issuing 45 1911s at all. They weren't. Because the word really, think about the atrocious training we had. I think about the training I had in the late 80s with a 1911. And that was bad. Now, when I'm looking back on it as a firearms instructor, I'm in Marine Corps boot camp and they gave me the worst. Dude, I have better instructions at diversity shoots than the Marine Corps gave me on my 1911. So it was horrible because you had entire generations of guys that were drafted into the military and shown how to use this handgun incorrectly, firing it with one hand with those minuscule sights. They knew they couldn't hit anything. And if you think about the abuse that World War II and Korean era 1911s had to go through. So no one was looking at that. So you had revolvers all the way up until I think it was like 1968 when the Illinois State Police adopted the 9mm Smith and Wesson. I forget which number it was because I don't have my Smith decoder ring. But that was pretty much when a 9mm got here, like 60 years after it had been developed in Europe and used in wars and everything else around the planet. So, and then it took another 20 years before we started issuing it to police forces here as the Glock 17.
Yep. Now you did have, and I've seen it around here. I've seen it around here for years. You're right. You got to distinguish too between department issue and what some officers chose. And so we were
Mm-hmm.
talking about the P series Rugers earlier. For many years, my dad carried the P90.
Mm-hmm.
He swore by it. It was a tank. He was accurate with it. Blah 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 blah. And so he put in the special request, qualified, and that's what he carried. And I know quite a few officers that to this day carry 1911s. And it's now, to be fair, it's mostly our generation or considerably older, but they
Mm-hmm.
do. So you've got, even though departments may, you got to look at it to say that, oh, this is the best because the department issued. I guess this was a trap I was trying to show people and say, don't fall into this trap. Is it's real easy for the commercial side to look and go, what do the police carry? There's a lot of politics in what the police carry. Comes down to price, comes down to what kind
Mm-hmm.
of deal they get, sweetheart deals, comes down to a lot of different things, right? So looking at that, what I've tended to look at more was, what are the things that the department issued law enforcement officers, what are they changing up to personally? Like, I don't want to carry that. I want to carry this over here, right? And like, why are they doing that? Well, because I don't like X, Y, and Z on the department issue. So, um, I guess what I say is, don't generalize or think something is awesome just because law enforcement or military or whoever uses it, because especially when you're talking government entities like that, because there's a lot of different motivating factors behind it.
Yeah, I 100% agree with Clover on that. But one of the reasons I suggest, when people ask what should I get, I suggest they look at the department thing, is because even though your small department might not have done the testing, more than likely, either large departments like New York, like LA, like some state agencies, and definitely federal agencies like the FBI, when they go to look for a new firearm, they have extensive standardized testing that they use. So you can look at the group of firearms that they used as, okay, these have been tested in a way, in a duty use kind of, it can handle this kind of crap way. That's what I tell people to look at with that. And the other thing is, in the self-defense use, um, how can you say I have a more dangerous gun because again, I live in a blue state that's anti-gun, and they'll try to push any narrative, especially, oh, I have a more dangerous gun. Well, if I have the same one issued by the police, how is my gun more dangerous than theirs? And theirs is acceptable, and somehow I'm some kind of I'm the Punisher because I carry the same firearm. So they can't have it both ways in court. So that's one of the reasons I suggest stuff like that. But I 100% agree with Clover. Just because police use it does not, or the government issues it, does not mean it's the best.
Your consequences are your freedom and your future. Their consequences are their job.
Yeah, they can get a new job.
Yep. Yeah, okay. I thought you guys might have been talking about something from the 90s. You're talking about the thing that happened in Texas recently. I thought it was
Mm-hmm.
something I was thinking of something like back in the olden days, like how like the 40 had its event. I was thinking it was one of those events back in the day. So the other last thing we had start over here, because we're getting to the point where Clover has to run. Do you got to run right this second, or what's up?
No, but it's getting close.
So I don't know if we want to get into this one or not. How passionate or how interesting this topic is for everybody. But 500 Magnum, much earlier when we were talking about things, said the Tech 9 is a very cool looking gun, but it's a jam-o-matic. I don't like saying jam because I say malfunction, but it doesn't work in this sentence, obviously. But I think there's a lot to be said. I'm not an apologist for Tel-Tec or Tech 9s, but Intertech and Intratech and that story, that's a Swiss machine gun that came over here to sell to the United States and was like, here you go. And then the United States was like, we can't handle open bolts. We got to fiddle with that. And then they turned it from an open bolt into a non-open bolt. And then the company got sold about 8 times. So that's about as much as I'll dive in. But I really think that's an interesting story. I've never had the time to get into it, but I've done some research. And the issue is you can get them from the source. You can get the tooling and the materials that were sold to the first company. then you can get them sold to the second company, and there might have been like a third company in Montana or something. So depending on which ones you got, and then
Yep.
it's a gun made out of polymer in the 90s or 80s or whenever, I guess the 80s really, right? And
Yeah.
you know, polymer was what it was. It isn't the same polymers we have today, for sure. Like gun frames are made out of different material today than they were back then. So somebody who was using those kind of polymers who wailed on it is different. That gun's going to be different than somebody who stuck it in the safe and didn't do nothing with it. And that gun's going to be different than somebody that stuck it in a toolbox in the back of their pickup, and it was like in, you know, Arizona, and that thing
Yeah.
got all warped and weird. And it doesn't have to be like warped into a, you know, just a pretzel to not work good. It can just be goofy, and
Yep.
it can come from all kinds of stuff. Plus, all the metal parts are stamped. So somebody who doesn't know what they're doing and is cleaning it overzealously or drops it while they're cleaning it and doesn't know what to look for, you know, a stamped part that gets bent is not the same as when it was, you know, bent before. Like, so there could all kinds of things could be jammed or crimped or weird. And sometimes it's as easy as looking at it when you know what you're looking at and going, kind of moving a spring around or pushing on something, or maybe because the frame did get weird, filing a little bit of something, all of a sudden you got a perfectly working gun again. So these guns are what they are, but I think they're also demonized. Like, you guys don't know, probably most people listen to this don't remember the 80s, but these guns were
They were.
Yep.
they're demonized today, like 3D printed guns. These were the guns that people would be like, oh, well, just those guns? We can. Those were the fucking compromised guns. These all weapons ban. Like, oh, we can get rid of those guns. So I don't want to dismiss them as jam-o-matics, because that's like throwing away a Model T Ford because it doesn't start up the first time you turn the key. Well, I guess there's no key on that car, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Like it's there's too much in there. So I kind of did a bit of a rant there, but I'll let you guys. I don't know if we want to do a whole.
Well, you know, as somebody who owns one and owns a pre-ban and the, you know, basically the complete set with the original box and everything else, I see it more on the collectability side because of the demonization and everything else. You have not said anything, G, that's not untrue. But what you did say there, was you talked about, you know, a lot of the reasons they can have issues. And so, you know, anybody, if you're out there and you're thinking, well, I want to invest $1,000 or whatever, I mean, it's insane prices right now for them because of the collectability issue. And you're thinking, hey, I, you know, want to invest that $1,000 and I want to go to the range every weekend. Just realize that, you know, you're going to get some hard cut primers and you're going to have some issues related to that because of firing pin springs and because firing pins get worn, tips get blunt, and even firing pins break, which is a pretty common issue with them, to the stamp parts, particularly magazines, you know, the feed lips or whatever, upper part of the magazines. I mean, that can become an issue. Magazine floor plates breaking. I've seen that repeatedly over the years with some of them, with the OG, with the original mags. And quite honestly, I don't even have any aftermarket mags. I'm sure somebody makes them out there. But I don't have any. I got 3, I think, magazines with the one I've got, and they were all originals. And yeah, floor plate broke out of one, and it was one of the funniest things because it probably had 20 rounds in it when it broke, and standing there while all the rounds fell out the bottom was kind of comical. It was almost like a cartoon. But yeah, I mean, you know, just I think you have to understand. You have to understand the Tech 9, you know, and don't set yourself up like, oh, that looks cool, and you know, it's going to be like some modern firearm. You know, I'll throw the X-Tar EP45 since I got one of those, right, into the mix there. You know, it's not going to be something like picking up this X-Tar, which is, though there's a lot of polymer in it, but you know, it's more of an AR-15 style design. It's night and day, the difference between the two, but also the difference between the two is if you've got a Tech 9 nowadays, you've got something. If you've got an X-Star EP9, you've got a cheap poly, you know, fun little pistol. Like I don't know that they will ever be collectible to the level of the Tech 9. So everything is different, and we own things. That's why we own different things. It's for different reasons.
Well,
Are the things that are rare have to be more collectible and valuable just because they're super rare, even though
No,
no,
they absolutely
no,
don't. I had
no.
a French Velo dog, I think it was revolver that I couldn't hardly get rid of it when I got ready to sell it. Um, and it was at the time it was built in like the mid 1890s or something, and I did good to get $100 for that thing. Like,
Mhm.
you know what I mean? Age and rarity, and I mean, it was fairly rare. I mean, you don't see a 1890s Velo dog revolver around everywhere. How often do you see those? Even if you get on Gunbroker and look, right? Um, so, and a lot of I'm really big into that late 1800, early 1900 era with a lot of my collection, just because that was a shipped to your door, right?
Yeah.
Farm and ranch stores, department stores, things like that. You've seen a lot of stuff, and everybody and their grandma was starting a company, and the big names were making store branded stuff. It's kind of when they seen that stuff kick off and start, and so. Um, but the thing is, a lot of the stuff in that era, and even name brand stuff, even some of the Colt and Smith and Wesson stuff you see from the late 1800s, early 1900s, does not bring big money. So yeah, age does not equal collectability for sure.
well,
Yeah.
and rarity.
Oh yeah,
Well,
rarity.
yeah, rarity. But my whole thing with the Tech Nine is you see with the Tech Nine how a firearm got vilified, and then that vilification led to the companies change. I mean, the companies changing hands because of lawsuits and everything else, and going out of business. Quality control falls off. Weirdness happens with magazines and parts, and then fast forward, and now this thing is being romanticized on some level because it's not like it was just this great firearm that needs to be brought back. It just had that whole storyline going with it,
Right.
and
Yeah.
now it's like, oh, and I'm like, no, dude, the MP5 is still much better than Tech 9. Like almost a lot of stuff is better than that. I mean, shoot, bringing back a Mac 10 and Mac 11, in my opinion, is on par with it, and we've romanticized the heck out of those too. A lot of
Well,
firearms
you can 3D print a lot of a Mac 10, so that design. So it's but I'm sure you can probably 3D print that just
yeah.
easy. Yeah.
But I mean, those are simple firearms, blowback operated. But my point is, a lot of stuff that one is villainized was villainized politically. Saturday Night Specials as a whole class of firearms. And then when us as the firearms community, another generation comes along and they look up to something that they weren't there for. So it seems a lot cooler than it really was at the time, or even is now.
Mm-hmm.
Tommy guns. Oh, dude, how many generations of people are hoodwinked by that goddamn overcomplicated machine?
And
It
it's
is.
super heavy. Everybody
It's
that picks it up is like, whoa.
yeah. It's the weight of a full size 7.62 by 51 AR, but it shoots a 45 round, and even loading it is stupid. Putting the magazine in is a pain in the butt. The fact that it has control for safety and control for full auto, like weirdness. But everybody
And putting
wants
the
one.
mags in, like people think you can just swap a mag
Mm-mm.
on a Tommy gun. Good luck.
That's lining up a rail with another rail.
Yeah, with two hands, one of them's way out in front of you, and it's heavy as shit. And then you're getting tired, and your arm's getting abused because you've been shooting on it.
So we do that to ourselves as a community, but I think even the car community, same thing. They're classic cars that people drool over. Meanwhile, your Hyundai, your cheapest Hyundai is a better ride and better options.
That's what I was going to compare it to. Yeah, like some of these are muscle cars, and it's neat to hear the story of them, but it doesn't mean that they're the best car to go to the grocery shop in or to take the kids to school or something.
Yeah, it's the one you take to the car show on a sunny day.
Yeah, you go play around in it. Maybe it has like the Mad Max potential or something, but in reality, one of these SUVs is probably better. All right, well, so We're right about an hour, and that's how much we offer on Saturdays. So we'll be back next week. If you've got specific questions, go to askgunquestions.com. But both of these dudes do stuff also throughout the week. Wait, you do have one on the 17th, right, Tony? Your next
Yes.
diversity shoot is on the 17th.
Next diversity shoot is Thursday 17th at Gun for Hire Range. You can find information on my social media at Simon Says Train on Instagram. It's in the profile. Click on it, buy a ticket. Also, Second for Everyone on Twitter. Second is for Everyone on Facebook. So if you want to get some, or go to diversityshoot.com and follow the link to Eventbrite. Pick up your ticket.
And thanks for that. And then you got also one on the 31st.
Got one on the 31st. We did 3 this month. If people don't know, this month is National Sports Shooting Month.
Shooting Sports Awareness Month. Yeah.
Yeah, so I've been pushing that. I've been making videos. I've been hashtagging tagging NSSF, using the hashtag Let's Go Shooting. Only because we try to bring attention to the fact that ranges and everything, people have programs out there to actually get you to shoot this month. So take advantage of it.
Yep.
That's a good point. Yeah. Well, Clover, what do you got coming up? You got your new one scheduled yet?
Coming up, not so much. I mean, I'm working on the late 23 season of the podcast. That'll kick off in September. I think we've got 14 episodes booked, scheduled, and ready to go. May potentially add a couple more before that kicks off. As far as anything current, though, drop the Ghost and Clover thing Sunday. So if you haven't checked that out, go look at that one. Audio Replay World, that is going to be up in there, and then over on the Ghost and Clover channel on YouTube is the only place you're going to be able to find that. We don't keep it on our individual channels after it is recorded live. And then I can't remember when it was. Monday set in with William Wallace on his show for, I don't know, about 15 minutes or so, a little segment on the Finding Freedom Forum show. And so, get on probably Facebook or YouTube, probably, and do a search for Finding Freedom Forum, I think is what it is. And you should be able to come up. And if you're looking for William Wallace or Bill Wallace, it's Wallis. It's not like the Braveheart William Wallace. So Wallis.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, man. Thanks for the shout out on that show, dude. I really appreciate it.
You bet. I left a bunch of folks off, but I only had 15 minutes.
That's all right. You got the best ones in. So, I mean, that's...
I tried. Just the ones that are on the forefront of my brain, and hang out with you probably more than any of them, right? So you're always right there on the tip of my brain pan, so to speak.
Thanks, man.
Well, take a minute and tell us more about that, because I'm trying to go find something to link the show to, because I always forget that nothing really is going until I start the show.
What?
Nobody think I'm hurt at all because I got 0% of people wanting to shoot my guns.
I was going to say, we did end the poll over there. Clover wins. So Clover could figure out how he's going to distribute his guns to the people that voted for shooting his guns. I guess you need to send Clover your FFL information. He'll just send his guns to you when you're done with them. Please send it back. Please send it back when you're done.
Why not? Yeah, exactly. I did put a link out there to that episode. Cool. It is the Finding Freedom Forum. And the way I understand it, and I could be wrong, this dude has I think he's got a radio show. It's one of them deals where it's a radio show that he like records on Facebook too, and then pushes to YouTube type. So one of them type things. So I met him at NRAM in Indianapolis. Nice. Is where I met him. So
it's always good to get the word out there, dude. The people ask all the time, will you do my podcast? Yes. Like, how many people does he have? I don't care, man. Let's get the word out there. If you got 5 people, it's 5 people that never heard of me before.
Yeah, I don't like the YouTube channel for this is, I think, a fairly small. YouTube channel. But the thing is, like, people will look at numbers on a certain platform, and they often like to judge something by the numbers on one platform, and it's like, well, like, you could have a nationally syndicated radio show, and the vast majority of your people, that's the reason you have a nationally syndicated radio show, listen to you on the radio, the vast majority, millions of people even, right? And you could still only have 10 Instagram followers or 20 YouTube subscribers. Like, that is a thing. So
You have 1,000 people follow you on Twitter, and they don't. Obviously, he's a nobody.
yeah,
It's like,
right, yeah.
it's Joe Rogan.
Not
Yeah,
so much.
it's Joe Rogan. Yeah, he's a nobody.
Yeah, not so much. But Joe Rogan pays people to work his social media, so his numbers are definitely higher. But not everybody is that way. Not everybody hires social media managers.
Yes, I have my people that handles my
Yeah.
social media.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
you know
Joe
what?
Rogan,
If you've got a minute, I just got done linking to the overnight. So thanks, Foss, for hosting a show each Saturday night. It's over it's overnight, so it's late night. So we link to that. I was trying to link to Brooke Cheney's Great Start Shooting School channel's suicide prevention Saturday show, but she doesn't have her YouTube channel like open to do that. So I was just taking a second to leave a note, but that made me remember about the podcast research I did. So I got you guys both here. You got a minute to hang around still, Clover? Good. So where did I put this? Did I put it on Minuteman? I think I did. So I'm looking at Minuteman on the screen here where I put all my notes. Right?
Yeah.
So if we go to podcast, I need Tony to tell me how many of these podcasts he's in. So I don't know if you saw when I posted all this the other day, but I seen some what am I trying to say? Like an article, and it was like, oh, that's interesting, but it was missing a bunch of podcasts. So I went into this place called Listen Notes, which lists all the different podcasts in order of their rank. And then it's got 1,000 results for guns. It was like fewer for firearms, and then a little bit fewer for Second Amendment, and then even fewer for 2A. But I searched for all four of those. It took like an hour, 2 hours or something. And just to FYI, to start off with, there's essentially, I keep saying 35. It's 3 million, little over 3 million podcasts, period. That's how many podcasts on the planet Earth today. So Gun Talk, we all know that's an old one, radio show. Vortex Nation, right? We Like Shooting, Sean. We all know Sean. Student of the Gun Radio. Do you know that one, Tony?
Yep.
Who is that?
That's Jared and his dad.
Okay. And then AR-15 podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know them?
Yeah, I've been on there. I mean, as we're going through, I've been on. I wasn't on Gun Talk, but I've been on with. What's his name from Gun Talk? Can't even think of his name.
Grisham.
Yeah. I've been on with him. We've been on shows together, but I've never been on Gun Talk. Yeah.
So then there was these. I'm going over the hunting ones because we're not hunting, but Lone Duck Gun Dog Chronicles, and then Going Ballistic with Ryan Kleckner.
I was on with Ryan, but I haven't been on his show. Gun Funny, yeah, been on it.
Okay, let me go back to that then. So Gun Funny is Eva, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you got Gun Dog It Yourself. I'm guessing you're not on that one. Gun Guy Radio?
No, kind of. Gun Guy Radio was me. The guy who founded the network, Firearms Radio Network. That's Jake's show. That's Jake's show, yeah.
So does it still exist or no?
He came back a couple times and then bounced, so I don't think it exists, but I haven't checked lately. Clover
okay, but that's why it's up there. It pegged itself at the top because it was so well done and it was done for a long time, and then it's just still there. And then the same with Ken Blanchard, Black Man with a Gun.
Yeah,
and
I've been on there.
Well, that article I seen missed a bunch of stuff, so that's why I was like, come on, I know there's stuff that's in there.
Yeah, been on there.
So then we got This Week in Guns.
Been on there.
This is also Sean's network, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Sean's wailing on it. And then Bearing Arms, we know that is.
Been there.
Gun Gripes from Iraqi. Well,
no.
Have you ever been on there?
No, haven't. Eric and I talked about it, but I haven't spoken to Eric since he started that.
Oh, I got his email. I don't know. I mean, you can get his email. Self-defense gun stories.
Yes.
So that
Actually,
you're on that one, right?
yeah, I'm recording for that Tuesday.
So that's what I was going to say. Top 1% of all top podcasts. I don't know if you've been paying attention, but this LS score is what we're looking at. The LS score is the score. It's from 1 to 100. 100
Oh.
would be the best. 0 would be the worst. 1 would be lower than 99,
Nice.
right? So 47 in the gun realm. If we go back up and look at the spread, Gun Talk is a 57. So that means the gun realm is 57, 0 to 57. So the podcast that you're a part of, Self-Defense Gun Stories, 47, top 1% of all podcasts. And you're a regular guest on that, right?
Yeah,
Regular
yeah.
host.
Then
Then we've got Duck Gun, whatever, Gizzard. I think they misspelled Gizzard Gary on this one. Then we got the Gun for Hire radio podcast.
I'm on that
so
a lot. Yeah.
Right. And plus that's where you do the Gun for Hire or the second for every the diversity shoots. Gun and Gear Review podcast. Is that yours?
Yep, that's mine. That's one of them. Yeah.
All right. So fucking motherfucker. Top 1%. LS 45.
That is crazy.
Why isn't Tony getting paid for what the fuck? The Reloading podcast? I don't know.
Not yet. That's Stephen Gutowski, writer. He's on CNN now as their gun guy.
What? No, that's the Reload.
Oh,
that's the Reload. I think this
is the Reloading podcast. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think this is literally Reloading. I'm pretty sure. Because it started in 2014 and Steven started his much more recently.
Yeah.
Then we've got Survival and Basic Badass. Never heard of it, but 45. They're doing good. Top 1%. Active self-promotion. I don't know if you've ever been on that one.
No, I haven't.
Life, Liberty, and the Pursuit. I don't know that one, but I think from the title, we get the idea what that one could be. Top 1%. Not Your Average Gun Girls. You know them.
I know them, but I haven't been on the show.
Modern Self-Protection podcast.
That's my boy, Ben Branham. He's also a co-host on Self-Defense Gun Stories. If you don't know, please check it out. Self-Defense Gun Stories. We have a roster of 6 different self-defense firearms instructors. Each week we have a new one come on, talk about 4 real incidences of armed self-defense. And we break it down, what was good, what we can learn from it. I think even if I'm not on, actually, I didn't know I was going to be on it. Rob came up with the concept and said, hey, I'm thinking about starting this. I'm like, dude, I can't wait to listen to it. It sounds like a great idea. He was like, the reason I'm contacting you is because I want you to be on it. I was like, oh, yeah, still think it's a great idea.
So this is a guy who's a Marine?
Oh, no, Rob Morse. No military, no police. Yeah, Rob Morse.
Wait, he's the Modern Self-Protection one?
No, Modern Self-Protection is Ben Branham, which is one of the co-hosts. And
you're talking about.
Yeah. Modern Self-Protection is run by Ben Branham. He was in the Marine Corps. He went to LAPD to be a cop, and I think he bounced or got hurt in the academy. Something happened. Or he went to the academy in LA and decided he didn't want to be a cop. But he's a firearm instructor in San Antonio.
Okay, and that's where I remember it from the Self-Defense Radio Network. So they're connected through self-defense. So is Rob Morse on both of those?
No, Rob Morse, not active self-protection, self-defense gun stories.
Right, okay. That one was up here, though, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Self-defense gun stories, top 1%, ranked 47. Then we get to Gun Lawyer. I don't know that.
That is a guy who fights in Jersey.
That's the Jersey guy? Okay, so you know him, or you've been on that?
I haven't been on it, but yeah, I know Evan Knappen. That's his thing.
Now we're down to top 1.5%. Got that one. Then you got Civilian Carry Radio.
I was on that at one time. I was on the Gun Collective podcast at one time.
Okay. And then you got the Gun Magazine. I don't know that one, but that's, the magazine, I'm guessing. The Firearms blog, Behind the Gun. I'm just going to start whipping through them because now I think we got a bunch that we don't all know. Firearm Trainers, though, for the American Firearm. The Off-Duty, On-Duty podcast. I think that's Cops. Second Amendment, Flight Society. You're on there all the time. Locked and Load with Bill Frady
on there.
So now we're down to the top 2%. Gun Room. I wish I remember what that is, but I'm not going to try to hit all of these. Dirty Civilian, Gun Guy TV. That's Joe something out of California, right?
I thought he was in Arizona, but yeah, okay.
No, I think he's in California. Oh, I know he's in California.
Okay.
Then you got the Goal, Gun Owners Action League. So they're doing good, top 5%. The Gun Guy podcast, and that's the problem, is there's a bunch of gun guy things. So podcast, radio, and TV. Armed Scholar, that's out of California. What's his face? The lawyer guy. Reformed and Reloaded. Then we got Armed Lutheran. This is a church. This is one of the religious one, and then Armed Lutheran is on with you guys on the Sean's
Self-Defense Radio. No. Is he on Sean's now? Because he was on
is he from Self-Defense Radio Network?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought he was on the other one. So
because he asked me to be on a few times. They were actually trying to get me to be on the network, but I said no.
And then do you see which one this one is?
Holy one! They're missing like 20 freaking shows, but okay.
Well, no, that's a feed thing, and we'll talk about that off air. But yeah, your top 5%. You have an LS of 33. That's just one of your own podcast, and then not to mention how many you've been a guest on or affiliated with. Then you get the Big Tex Ordinance, the Gun Experiment, Gun Owners Radio. That's you've been on there. That's the one from San Diego County Gun Owners, right? Gun Freedom Radio, Cheryl Todd and Dan. Keeping Bear Radio, Gun Radio Utah, 2A Lifestyle, A Better Way 2A. Do you remember that one? I know I've heard that a million times.
Oh, Better Way 2A actually follows me on social media.
Okay, so that one's good because they're in the top 5%. They only started in March of 2022, and they're already in the top 5% of all podcasts. Great. So that's worth checking out.
I'm going to have to check this out, man, because it seems to me, look, listening to people, man, and finding new podcasts and new points of view is awesome.
We got Minnesota Gun Report, Firing Line Radio, then us, my show. 2A Cops is some off-duty cops, or cops that retired from California. We're down to the top 10% now, so we're not as good as y'all with your fancy top 2 and top 1 and top 5%. Then Save the Second is one of Pincus's things out of Colorado that was focused on the NRA. They did pretty good considering they did something like 26, if you call them episodes, 26 shows, period. Armed, Black, and Ambitious, since May 22, is already in the top 10.
Cool.
The Gun Rack, Second Amendment Radio. I don't know what that is. Hank Strange's show, Riding Shotgun with Charlie, right behind him.
Nice.
Riding Shotgun with Charlie is this guy that plays the trumpet, and he drives around in a car. Then he's top 10%, rank of 26, right? Then we get the New Hampshire podcast, Range Minded podcast, Second Amendment, Shooting Straight Radio. Then Clover Tech.
I know that lady.
At 23. Who?
I know that lady, Clover Tech. She's cute.
Yeah, I've heard of her. So how cool is that? That Tony, now number one, you've been in like half of these shows, but like you are co-host or own shows in the top 5% of all podcasts. And that's from a third-party source. Second is for everyone is beating Cheryl and Danny Todd. It's beating San Diego County Gun Owners by a lot, dude. Yeah, you're an LS of 33, and they are 32s. So it's like by a whole point.
Hey, listen, I appreciate everybody who's ever had me on, and I respect these people that put a show out every week. It's a lot of work, man. I'm glad they're doing
I think there's a mix in there. I mean, there's some network stuff for sure. There's people that are doing different strategies and different levels of effort to it. People that have been doing it for length of time or whatever. But and we know a couple of them, like Ken doesn't do his, right? Yeah. He does other things now, but that got pegged up there. You said that other one got pegged up there.
Ken's coming back in September.
To start doing Black Man with a Gun again?
Yep.
Oh, right on. Well, it's probably a good time because we'll be going into a election year. Everybody's going to get panicked and excited and whatnot. So it'll be
and dude, understand that I got into podcasting to speak to people, to introduce them, you know what I mean, and welcome them into the community and educate some people about different things you might not know about. But it was Ken and it was Paul that I was on their show. I listened to them. I was a fan of theirs, and that was my entry into Second Amendment and firearms related podcasting. To make me want to step into that arena, just listening to those guys. So to me, it's just an honor, almost like unbelievable that I'm on a list with them, much less, you know what I mean, where I am on that list. Or the fact that I'm a co-host to some of these shows that are in the top 1%. I just feel
That's
blessed
a Paul
about it.
podcast. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, dude. I mean, wow. But
Well, it's
it's
not
really
crazy,
cool.
but it's neat to know. Yeah, I mean, it is
Yeah.
crazy. You put a lot of effort into it, and what you're providing is obviously in demand. But anyway, I just thought it'd be
Yeah,
interesting
cool.
to throw that out.
Thanks,
Are you still
man.
here, Clover?
No, Clover was like, I don't care about that. Tony beat me.
Yeah.
F him.
No, I'm still here. No, I'm still here. Oh, I don't care about people beating me.
Nah, dude, plus, there ain't no beating nobody, bro.
I help people beat me. What are you talking about? Like,
All right, we need to keep this conversation in context. But heck yeah, man. There's no competition, dude. We're all in this. I feel we're in this together, and there's no beating somebody. There's helping somebody, assisting somebody, and raising others up.
yep.
All right. Well, with that, then we'll wrap it up. Again, I'll throw a commercial up for our Gear website start. Most of us have something out there. You can join as our YouTube members, Patreons. Tony's got the Eventbrite. You can grab a slot at a Second is for Everyone diversity shoot, or at just grab or use the Venmo or the PayPal link there on the website and
Yep.
help them with the pizza or the ammo cost. It's always appreciated.
Always.
All right, we'll be back next week. If you got questions, put them in the website. Thanks for watching. AskGunQuestions.com is a website that we built back in 2007. And since then, for the last 15 years, people have been able to ask questions of simple to advanced nature, and we attempt to answer them in different ways over the years. Join us now as we start a new series to answer gun questions. GearWebsites.com is your source for firearms-based playing cards and books. We also have mugs, shirts, and posters with designs that we've made live. Of course, we have patches. Every Friday is Free Patch Friday. We appreciate your support. Thank you for shopping at GearWebsites.com.